Welcome to the DIY Goalie Podcast, where hosts and goalie coaches Nathan Park and Connor Monday share their insights on how to become a better goalie.
Goalies, how's it going? Welcome back to the DIY Goalie Podcast presented by True North Goaltending. Once again, back in the driver's seat here today. Nathan Park again on assignment for this week, but we are joined by a very, very special guest and somebody well known in the goaltending community, Dr. Jamie Phillips. Jamie, thanks for coming on today.
Hey, thank you. Honestly, I usually go by doctor because I paid a lot of money for the title, but it doesn't really matter.
Fair, fair enough. You have it. You might as well own it, right? But no,
That is true. Well,
for
thanks for having me on, Connor. Thanks for having me on.
hey, no problem. With just again for those if you're living under a rock, Jamie Phillips, a goaltending coach out in Michigan, as well as a certified physiotherapist. Doing a lot of great stuff in the goaltending community, and also is one of the hosts of the Goalie Science podcast with Mr. Derek Bujan. Jamie, how are things going for you this week? And what have you been up to lately?
Things are going well. I mean, it's only Tuesday this week, so time will tell. But my life, as you described, as being a goalie coach, a physio, doing all the things I do is very, very busy. But right now, we only have one team. So I'm also director of goaltending at Fox Motors AAA, and we only have one
Right.
team at Nationals next weekend. So my evenings have freed up during the week for the first time in about 8 months. I get to be home before before 9 p.m. So it's great. My wife's happy, and then I get to relax a little bit before a very, very busy off season.
One of those great things. We just wrapped up our Monday sessions with one of our minor hockey teams, and so um, one of the past guests that we had, Evan Carrillo, was like, "This is what my house looks like after 4 p.m. and you're not at the rink from like 5 to 6 or whatever." So, but yeah, no, definitely, I think it'll be a little bit of a more quiet off season for us this year. But Nathan's definitely looking forward to it. He's got some big plans happening for this year, but not here to talk about that. Jamie, let's talk about you here for a little bit. Let's just kind of talk about your playing background here for a little bit. How'd you get into hockey? How'd you get into goaltending? And what was your playing career like?
Well, I started hockey like every good Canadian boy on the pond. As soon as I could walk, my parents put me on skates. I was a player for first, I don't know, probably 11 years in my small town of Caledonia, Ontario. Pretty good, good for a small town. And one of the things, so when you were good, my dad, not being a hockey dad or hockey guy, kind of got, I don't know, maybe it was stars in his eyes or whatever, and he pushed me too hard, got to actually the point where I stopped enjoying it. And so I basically gave him an ultimatum when I was around 11, 12ish. I said, like, hey, either I become goalie or I don't play hockey at all. And to his credit, he realized that, he did push me too hard. He caused me to burn out. So he said, you know what? Sure. Like, if you want to be a goalie, we'll support you as long as you try your best. We'll continue to do whatever it takes. And I was fortunate enough where I grew up just outside of Hamilton, Ontario. So in that area of Hamilton and the GTA, there's basically a goalie coach on every street corner. And I just happened to get hooked up at On Ice Goaltending, which is now owned by Derek Bujan, who you mentioned is my podcast co-host. And we ended up working together and basically didn't stop working together from the day I put on gear until the day I retired. So I was fortunate in that sense. Started out late, was able to, thanks to some good training, a lot of good effort, a lot of hard work, excuse me, some good parenting, some parental support, and just basically sheer will. Was able to work my way up into the junior ranks. Was drafted to the O. Never played the major junior, but was able to work my way into junior A. Got a scholarship. Was drafted to the NHL. Played 4 years at Division One at Michigan Tech. Signed out of college. Played 4 years of pro, bouncing around the minors between the American League, East Coast, a little bit in Europe, and then uh, basically kind of got burnt out at the end. And we can get into that later. But kind of got burnt out at the end, and then COVID happened, and it was time to pack it in and move on with my life and try to find my calling or my life after life is kind of how I like to put it, as I during the moment, you don't really think about your life after hockey, and then all of a
Right.
sudden it's thrown right at your feet. So that is the quickest explanation I can give you of my career of
Yeah.
27 years of hockey summed up in 3 minutes.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, let's just quickly jumping from that over to your coaching now. Think you've done some stuff with Derek, and as well as you also have a lead goalie method training, which we'll talk about in a minute here. But what was your reasoning from transferring from playing and getting into coaching, specifically goalies, and what along the way helped shape your coaching philosophy?
Um, so I started coaching goalies probably when I was about 14 and 15, under Booge, like just doing camps as like the junior instructors kind of thing, just to make a little bit of money to pay for summer training. You work so many hours, you get a lesson free kind of thing. Um, and so that's when I learned how to start to coach. And basically, when at that time, is I just mimicked Derek and whatever he did. And I really found that coaching younger goalies helped me understand the positions, especially when I was still playing. When you're looking at the flaws of others, you're able to identify these things and you're able to kind of self coach yourself. And then actually, so I didn't really have any intention of coaching hockey. Actually, I was so burnt out and frustrated at the game. My last 2 years of pro, that I just didn't want anything to do with it. I was trying to find a career that I was going to be able to basically dissociate from hockey as much as I could. Originally, when I was going to school, it was to study medicine to be a physician. Um, and then as I was playing, I realized, okay, I don't really want to spend 12 years of post, or I guess getting after my bachelor's degree. And I decided, oh, if like being a physio is definitely going to be easier. It wasn't. Hindsight being what it is. Um, but I knew that hockey was still a tool and a resource I could use. So I reached out to the head coach at Michigan Tech. I'm my old alumni, and the head coach was my goalie coach there at the time. And I said, hey, like I'm planning on retiring at the end of the season. If I'm able to come back and get my master's, because in the States, to be a physio, or here it's called a physical therapist, it's a doctorate level degree. And a lot of my credits had expired since I've been, classes I took freshman and sophomore year were 7 or 8 years behind. And so I said, like, hey, I need to take some classes in order to be able to apply to PT school. If I come in as a goalie coach, can I get this? Can you pay for it? And they said, yeah, like we need a goalie coach. At the time, there was no paid coaches in the NCAA, but you could allow for basically your tuition is covered. And they made it work. And so as soon as that was a done deal, I knew that, and I think it happened kind of when I was still playing in Cincinnati. So probably around January-ish of 2020, I knew that it was done deal, and I was like, "All right, we're playing with house money now. The end is coming up. We might as well go out on a bang and enjoy it." And then getting into coaching, when I got there, it it was surprisingly fast how much I realized like I enjoyed it. Um, the biggest thing was like coming into it, even though kind of the my mental health and I guess my relationship with the game wasn't very good, but I didn't want to do a disservice to the goalies I had because they're hungry, they're pushing. So I was like, you know what, look, let's just go and get these kids as good as you can be. And within the first like 2 weeks, that all of a sudden it was like the spark was back, and I was like, I love this. And I realized that same passion that I had for playing for so many years that fizzled away sparked back up into coaching and helping others. And I think, that kind of, I usually describe it as like relentless obsession that I had with my own game. I was able to transfer into the knowledge of building goalies, doing the PT studying so that I could be the best, sports PT that I could be, and all these things translated. And thankfully, through that hard effort and getting some good talent at Michigan Tech, we're able to produce a bunch of really good goalies. Uh, Two that are currently playing pro. One that will probably go and play pro after he's done school, and then that kind of helped build my reputation and my name as I realized, I was like, hey, there's a lot of value in this. Like, let's start to make a little bit of content. Um, I know I'm rambling, but at the time, social media goaltending was it's still a little bit in its infancy, and it wasn't like it is today. It was more of just like coaches had an Instagram, and that was it. And so I was like, hey, like let's start making content because there's a lot of nonsense on the internet right now in terms of things to do on both training and like training on and off the ice. So I was like, hey, let's start to talk about it. Let's start to talk about why the things that some people are doing might not necessarily be the most beneficial, and start to provide information. And then it grew and kind of grew and grew. My platform grew, my base of goalies grew. And as the more goalies I got to coach from different levels and ages, the more that I was able to help them improve. And then it worked hand in hand, kind of building itself up to kind of where I am right now.
A lot, a lot to unpack there. Might have to come back for a part two on that. Um,
Yeah.
and that's fine. I mean, like, I'm very happy to to hear that like you were going to going through that rough patch, specifically with your relationship with the game. I think every athlete goes through that at some point or another, right? They go through that. Like I not necessarily that they hate the sport, they hate the game or anything, but it's more so just like what like the time that I'm putting in, like, am I getting that same reciprocal coming out? And, then ended up finding that transferring that passion from playing to coaching, which I think is the better deal of all things. Um, and reigniting that spark again and being able to do what you're doing now, I think is that's excellent to hear. So I think takeaway for that, for goalies, it's like, hey, if you are going through that, things do get better on the other side, and just find different avenues in the sport here. Um, so talking about that, then, so then you were talking about kind of life after hockey. You said it came up on you pretty fast here, and you were talking about. I think what was it? You want to be a physician, right? You were saying, and then ended up transferring
Mhm.
over to physical therapy afterwards. So, what was the inspiration to pursue that that the academic side of things? Sorry, and achieve and achieve the doctorate in physical therapy.
Uh, I always knew I wanted to do something in medicine, and I always knew like if I played 10 years in the NHL and made millions of dollars, I still probably would end up exactly where I am today. I came from a very like highly educated, like both my parents are highly educated. My mom is a physician as well. She actually used to be a dentist, went back, quit being dentistry, went to med school, became a dentist. My older brother's a physician. My dad is, or was, he's retired now, but was a teacher. So like education was pushed like hard, and that was the priority: education first, athletics second. So I always knew I wanted to go back in something, and in Canada, teachers and physicians are government employees. It's a good, safe job. My parents were very, they weren't entrepreneurial. They weren't doing anything crazy. They were just classic, really good parents. Had a good government jobs. Very smart people, and they knew like, hey, you're either going to be a doctor or a lawyer. Like those are the jobs you're getting. Those are the safe, classic ones. And so
Love it.
looking at it, I also through my career and my exposure to some very, very good physios, when I was kind of like thinking about what I wanted to do, it was like, do I want to go into like sports medicine where maybe become a surgeon where yeah, yes, you might work with the top athletes, but you just see them I get them under the knife, they're under anesthesia, you do consultations, do your surgery, they're done. I realized that I really liked the one-on-one interaction and the day-to-day because it was a lot of being like you're in a dressing room,
Right.
when you're working with even young athletes to high level athletes. It's that is what I know, and that is what I know best, and that's what I enjoy the most. So being a physio will allow me to do that. And then as coaching started to grow and all these things started to grow, I realized, hey, like there's a very, very unique opportunity to blend these together and kind of be that goalie physio that doesn't really exist. Um, it doesn't exist because no one's kind of stepped up to that plate. And then anyone who is there's a lot of good physios out there too, but very few have pro experience, that playing experience. And I find that a lot of the athletes I get, whether they're goalies or players, are able to relate to that because I've been through the ringer of minor hockey into junior, into college, into pro. So like every step along the way, I know exactly how it goes. Um, and so that's how I kind of chose the education path. And then when I was there, I was like, I kind of dialed it in real early once I had an exposure to like working in a hospital. And I was like, yeah, this is a hard pass for me. Like, give me a bunch of athletes. Like, hey, and you know what? Like, it's rewarding and stuff, but just standing up people and sitting them back down, you know, the people need that. But I'm not the one to provide that service because I'm not passionate about it. I realized really early, I was like, as soon as I'm done school, like I'm just going to open it, hit the ground running, and try to figure it out right from day one because there's no point working a job that I don't enjoy.
Fair. So okay, so I have a three-part question to this when it comes to this. So
Okay.
the part one is that you have your um practice inside the rink that you guys play and practice out of. That's right.
That is correct.
Okay. So I'm gonna gather then that you do physical therapy for the team or for the program there at Fox Motorsports. Are you focused specifically with goalies, or are you like do you do like all facet like like players, defensemen, forwards, etc.?
My practice is primarily hockey players of all positions.
Okay.
I do have some non-hockey players. I have some parents. I have some regular non-athlete people, but I do like I specialize primarily in hockey players. That is my niche. That is what I advertise. And that's what I know best, and that's what I could provide the best care. Like if a baseball player comes into me and their shoulder hurts and there's something going on with their shoulder, like I can fix them. I know I
Yeah.
can. Am I the best person to fix them? No. I have a bunch of buddy PTs who are baseball guys. I'm going to be like, look, if geographic or whatever it is, it makes more sense to come to me, I'll fix you, no problem. But
Mhm.
if you're looking for a baseball guy or a girl, like here's who you're going to go see. And it usually works in tandem where, you know, other physios would be like, look, I don't really get hockey. I don't get slamming your knees into the ice 500 times a day. Like, go see Jamie. He's the hockey physio. Like he gets it. And that's so it works. It works in a really good relationship like that.
Gotcha. Okay, and then the last part to this is, um, because you have probably the knowledge that most other goalie coaches in our field don't, specifically when it comes to knowing how the body works and all the different muscles and kind of how everything works together. Does that knowledge help your approach into coaching goalies? Or do you kind of separate the two in a sense?
There is a significant amount of overlap. Now, do you need to have a doctorate level education to be a good goalie coach? No, absolutely not. I know that's to be the case. Do I think it helps to understand the body? Yes. And really, in the reasons is kind of imagine, I guess a good way to put it is like when you're trying to, because all of coaching and all of PT and stuff is just problem solving. Like you're trying to figure out the root cause of why something's happening. You know, why is this goalie getting beat so much up high? Like trying
Right.
to break it down, distill it into different components. Where I find that, you know, how I approach the game is there's a lot of playing experience, and so like when you've just seen thousands of goalies, you kind of know what the trends are. But it basically, like when I think about if something's really going on, or like I approach a position like an RVH, or I get a goalie who's 6'6" and I get a goalie who's 5'6", like I can kind of, I don't know, it sounds like kind of lame to say, but it's almost like a little X-ray vision where you can kind of see what is the anatomy doing under the gear, and then like really understand, okay, this goalie can't play this way, so we're gonna have to find a different way to adapt. It's like, you know, it's like that idea that every goalie needs to be ultra flexible, and if you can't do the splits, you're never gonna make it, or like you have to soft seal in the post. It's like, look, some people can do it. That's and you
Mhm.
can, great, and some people can't. And I also don't care if you can't. So if you can, let's work around it. And if you can't, let's work around it. And so every like coaching every goalie is very individual. And I think that's changing too. And like more goalie coaches are kind of going down that route. But for a long time, when you and I were playing, like there was like almost like one style, and it was basically be Carey Price.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, and that was it. Like, what is Carey Price doing? do that as best as you can.
Right.
And then I think now we've started to kind of understand that while certain fundamentals don't change, like obviously skating, tracking, ability to read the play are the three most important things. Within those three pillars, everything else is so gray. And like you look at, I had this conversation today with some of my goalies where you look at, I always use Aiden Hill, for example, because Aiden Hill is a Stanley Cup champion and a very good goalie,
Yeah.
but like he's not a great NHL skater. However, he plays his game so well and like is so good positionally, and he reads the game, and he tracks pucks so well that he's able to be an NHL starter. And then you take a Sergei Bobrovsky, who's basically got all the tools you need. They're still both Stanley Cup champions. They're still both in the NHL. So do you have to be Bobrovsky? No. Do you have to be Aiden Hill? No. Maybe you fall somewhere in between. Maybe something completely different, and that's okay. But my job isn't to tell a goalie, it's like, well, you're tall, so I'm going to force you to play like all of my tall goalies, like Aiden Hill, and your glove has to be here, your glove has to be there. It's like, no, I'm going to make sure that you're the best skater you can be. I'm going to make sure that your tracking is off the charts. I'm going to make sure you understand the play and read the play, because that's where we're seeing that's where I see most of the deficits, especially when I'm recruiting for like Muskegon in the USHL and like your AAA kids that want to come play is they can't process the game. And so if you can do those things, then those three things, and you're going to automatically be a step above your competition, regardless of your physical attributes.
Yeah. No, that's great and excellent to hear that. Um, okay, so let's talk about Elite Goalie Method. That's the company that you're running. What was your reason for starting it? What's it all about? And what do you aim to accomplish with this program?
That's a pretty good question. Reason for
We aim
starting
for
it
we aim for that
was
around here sometimes.
yeah. Reason for starting it was two things. Well, actually, I guess three things. Demand. One, people just asked so much for private training. Two, I needed a job while I was in school
Right.
because, unfortunately, the United States education system is extremely expensive. So to get a physio degree in Canada is about 25 grand Canadian. To get a doctorate of physical therapy in the United States is about $150,000 American. So I needed to pay for that over the course of many years, and at least not go into significant debt. And then the third part was I was leaving tech, and I was like, okay, like I want to keep coaching goalies, and now I can do this in Grand Rapids. I wasn't fully a part of Fox. I kind of went there on like a little volunteer basis. And so it was coaching for goalies, but then also I realized that the remote coaching kind of way that COVID pushed everyone, I realized that there could be like a ton of benefits from that. And then through like a select few goalies that I was just coaching online, just because, started getting like really good. And I was like, oh man, like you're telling me that if I can coach kids remotely and they can still get as good as the ones I coach in person, like why can't I do that too? And so that's how I started the EGM program online, and then eventually it merged into the in-person training that it is. But actually, primarily it was online only. And I forgot what the third part of your question was.
I was what do you look to accomplish with that program? And kind of what's I don't want to call it like what's the end goal, because I think it's a constantly evolving thing. But just when you started it, what were you hoping to accomplish with the program?
Uh, yeah. When I was starting it, it was just kind of those three things. Now it's more of like I really want to help as many goalies as I can get better to some degree. And like I know sometimes people will be like, "Oh, I want to help as many goalies as I can reach their highest potential," or whatever chat GPT avatar that they came up with. But like, a lot of goalies will come to me, and sometimes I'll get goalies that are really bad. And that's okay. Like it's okay that they're really bad. My job is to get them slightly better,
Mhm.
and then slightly better after that, and then continually better. And like I know a lot of these kids aren't going to make the NHL, but maybe the kid I have, their job, they just want to be a high school starting goalie, and that's okay. And so my job is to do what I can to get them there. And then that's where it is on the goalie side. And then now on the coaching side, where I've had over the last few years, I've had a lot of people like really inquire about my coaching methodology and like the way that I coach and all those things. And so now with the EGM Labs app and all these different things, I found that I can basically help a lot of people um, through the internet in different ways, both goalies and coaches and parents of the podcast, and basically just all of the thousands of hours of content that I continue to create in order just to help hockey in general. Like that's really it. Like at the end of the day, some of my goalies are going to go really high level, some of them aren't, and that's okay. But if I can help the parents make better decisions, the goalies give themselves the best opportunity if they really want to be hockey players and they want to push themselves, and then other coaches to maybe think something different, or maybe they never thought about this a certain way, then that's perfect, because that's going to help another goalie down the line that I'll never see, but they work with goalie coach X. And for some reason, actually, like the golden triangle, the kind of that rule I came up with, I was scrolling through, I was doom scrolling one night, and I saw like a bunch of goalie coaches were calling it the golden triangle, and I was like, hey, that's mine. Like, that's pretty cool. That is the name that it's now called. So good. And hopefully that means we're going to give up less RVH goals. And
Okay.
so that's where that's kind of the purpose now, is just to kind of help grow the position to be as good as it can be for everybody.
Sure. Um, we're finding that a lot more and more nowadays, I think, with a little bit more remote coaching that we're seeing, especially when the pandemic hit rampantly. And then even we're starting to see programs now, like In Goal Magazine, for example, had they just posted out their what is it, their goalie coach directory app, or directory program, or whatever it is that they have over there. And then another company out in Minot, North Dakota, with goalie coaches and Wyatt Wasanchuk, and the kind of the
Mhm.
program that they have out there as well. And then obviously the various Facebook groups and all the other apps like Stop It Goaltending You, and all those things. Do you think remote goalie coaching is starting to take more of an effect, like especially for those smaller town places, both within the States and in Canada and abroad, really?
Yeah, it's a good supplement. And so is it ever going to replace in-person coaching? Probably not.
No.
Can you can it help your game? Yes. The biggest thing that I found, the biggest downside to it is more of the accountability part, because you do put a lot of trust into young athletes um, with that. But usually, it's the ones that are most dedicated are the ones that do the work, anyways. Like, this is going to be a just shameless plug for the EGM app, but there's probably like 3,000 hours ish, 2,000, 3,000 hours worth of video content. Like, you can't not get some degree better
Mhm.
by going through all of it. And if you go through all of it, it probably takes several years to go through it all. There's also like, one of the questions I get is like, I just don't know what to do at practice. Well, there are hundreds of drills, and every week I add drills. And there's literally, I'm on this path. Like, one of my goals is to get 365 skating patterns. I think when I added today's videos, it was like 274 skating drills. Like, you're telling me that you don't have this, you can't just do one of the drills. And so like that helps. And so it is for those people that, so a lot of my goalies will be like, hey, like I could only go to stick and puck. And your
Okay.
drills have helped me because I wrangle up a couple shooters and we do your drills. And I know what they're supposed to look like because you've explained what they're like. Or like, I got junior A guys or college guys or high level AAA guys to demo these drills. And so it's like, oh, so now I know what I'm doing. Now I know what I'm looking for. And then when I watch it back, I have a little bit of base knowledge so that I can kind of like self coach. Because I guess really a long story long is they're basically giving kids tools to self coach themselves, and that's what every goalie has to be able to self coach. So you can't rely on a goalie coach 100%.
Right.
One, because you're the only one on the ice, like you don't get immediate feedback like players get. Um, Most teams just don't have goalie coaches, and even when you get to pro, like you don't always have a goalie coach there. Like in the East Coast League, you don't have a goalie. Some teams now have goalie coaches. a goalie coach would come for like 2 days when I was playing in the East Coast League.
Right.
Like that's it. So you got to coach yourself and you got to figure out all these problems on your own. So like having these resources available, and the more that there are, it's usually going to come full circle where there's going to be a bunch of them, and then the top ones will kind of like work their way to the top. The rest will fizzle out, but that will allow just for the best quality overall. And that's ultimately what matters, is that the content is the highest quality possible.
We'll jump a little bit more into just kind of goalie content in general, because you do have your podcast with Goalie Science and your YouTube channel and Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and all that fun stuff. Just again, going back to elite goalie method here for a second, because again, we talked a little bit earlier just with about a large part of it being the off ice component to a goalie's game. Is there one thing that you find in particular that goalies don't do enough of away from the rink that hinders their success, or is it kind of like
Yeah.
I suppose like a myth? Because Connor got our answer right there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's goalies are afraid to get strong. We we have this isn't a term that I coined. There's a fitness guy that's big in weightlifting that I really like to follow, or Olympic weightlifting. His name's Zach Talander, and he coined the term weaponized specificity. And it's a really good term. And if you're a strength coach or anyone has an exercise science background, like you'll kind of understand what I mean when I explain this. And it's, for a long time, you'll have everyone wants to try to find the secret, like the shortcut, the hack, whatever it is. And so you take a position like goaltending and you're like, okay, we do butterflies, we do power pushes. Therefore, in the gym, we must recreate these positions and then load them. And basically goes against all sort of strength and conditioning principles, where yes, there's a time for like specific exercise and stuff, but basically over the course of the last probably 15 years, we just created a lot of very weak, unathletic goalies who get injured too much. So it's just going through the basic principles of being strength training and just being an athlete. Like that's kind of where a lot of goalies specifically miss the mark, and I when I was younger, I said the same thing. Like I listened to
Yeah.
some people and shouldn't have listened to them, and I was just afraid to get strong. I was like, no, I can't work out my upper body because I'm a goalie. I only use my legs, or like stupid things like that when I was like 15, 16. And I look back and I was like, well, I didn't know what I didn't know, but I'll see it a lot more where I'll get athletes and they'll come to my treatment table and they're like, my hips are hurting, everything's hurting. And then I'll test them and it's like, man, you are just not strong. Like it's actually crazy that, you're able to move on the ice because you're not strong, but it's usually a recipe for disaster. And the cool part about not only being like a strength coach who works with a lot of high level athletes, but I also have the rehab background, so I can bring it all together. And it's essentially like most of the injuries that goalies face are just overuse injuries, and they're just not able to withstand the force. Like just moving, like skating, and
Right.
is just so high force, and we're always putting our basically our hips, which are probably the most vulnerable joint we have for goalies, in like a really unfavorable position. So like in our stance or when we butterfly, it's our hips are internally rotated. There's hip flexion, and then just like basically slamming in, which is textbook like symptomatic FAI. But if a body isn't able to handle that force consistently over the course of a season, it's going to break down. So how can we train the body to handle more force? Well, we have to load it. We have to load it safely. And if we're going to load it in the positions that are causing problems, we're just going to cause more problems. And like, I remember a couple of years back, I had a discussion, probably turned into an argument, but in my brain, it was a discussion about like squatting for goalies. And they're like, goalies don't need to squat 500 pounds and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yes, you are right. Like you don't need to squat 500 pounds to be a goalie, but you're telling me I have two athletes that are equal skilled, and one squats 500 pounds and one can only squat 135. That one that can squat 500 pounds safely probably is going to be more resilient overall. And so the message I would say to goalies is just be an athlete. Like be an athlete. Like you don't actually have to do things different than players in the gym. Yeah, you probably got to do more mobility, and I think that's only because players are also allergic to doing mobility for some reason. But
Ironically
it
enough.
would be like Yeah, great. That's basically the opposite of the players. The players need to do more mobility stuff, but it just be an athlete, get strong, like squat, like do single leg stuff, do split squats, like do all these things, like gain some muscle. Like it's okay. Like you're not gonna become a bodybuilder. Like trust me, if it was easy, everyone would do it.
Yeah.
Just be an athlete. That's actually funny because I call like my training programs basically like outside the beginner program, which is like for 12 to 14-year-olds, which is kind of like learning how to move and like lift weights safely. I just call my programs actually an athlete. Like actually an athlete one, actually an athlete two, actually an athlete
Yeah.
three. And it's designed for hockey players to be athletes because the most specific training we're going to get, the most specific training anyone could ever do is your sport. So going to the gym and trying to be specific in that is doing a disservice. And I'm not even going to talk about the science in terms of why it actually, like a lot of these things slow you down and cause more problems, but the gym should be for getting strong and fast and athletic and quick. You're creating attributes that carry over into your skill. And most of this still falls on deaf ears because I go on the internet and I will see dumb things and I will see the med balls and I'll see the nonsense. And it's like, and at first when I was younger, I was like, that really bothered me. But now I'm just like, look, you can't fix stupid. I'm just gonna the athletes I work with, I'm just gonna get them as good as possible. And if people want to listen to me, sure. Otherwise, I'm just gonna be the old man yelling at clouds. But like I said, so far all my athletes kind of have success to some degree, and that in the end is the only thing I care about because it's the only ones that I can actually kind of control.
Do you design workout specific programs for your athletes? And again, we're talking about goalies specifically, but you know, like is I guess what I'm asking is if I'm 15 years old and I come to you and I say, hey
Mhm.
Jamie, like I want to get stronger, to be more resilient in the net, and so what would be your advice, or what would be your recommendation to me, or do you have like is there like what would be like your suggested workout um routines, I'm going to call them, that's not the word that I'm looking for, but what would be your
Yeah,
workout plan
I
for
get
me?
what you're
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, what would be your workout plan for me to for 15-year-old Connor Monday to go to the gym?
Yeah, so it gets it. The first answer I would say is, hey, is there any hockey training groups near you? And like, yeah, would I love for everyone to buy my programs and stuff and do them? Yeah, it'd be great. But if there's a hockey training group in your area and the strength coach there is hopefully pretty good, if they have a good collection of athletes, I would say like if it's in the budget, go there. If it's either A, not in the budget, you don't have access, or you're just like, hey, I just really want to follow your own programs. I have I have a handful of programs that are almost like templates where they are going to work for everyone, regardless of your strengths, your weakness, ability, because they're just general athletic programs meant for hockey players. Like there's a few different things that hockey players would do different than say like a football player or a soccer player, but and then
Of course.
for the baseline, it's very similar. And you can follow those. I'm actually in the process right now of re-updating all of them for the off season. So those will probably drop those in March. But I guess I'll do my shameless plug. If you just follow me on Instagram, I'll do an announcement. They're gonna be running through Ghost Rehab instead of EGM for now, just because that way I can keep all my rehab stuff in the same line as my training. Um, and then by athletes that really want nitty gritty things and want to do like a lot of testing and more specific stuff, where they're like, hey Jamie, like I really want like a personalized program, we'll run through tests. So I'll send them like the training app that I use. I've created like a hockey specific area of tests that I want to see, and with that, it can become more targeted. And then really, what I do is I take those usually my actually an athlete program, and then I'll modify them to fit that athlete. Maybe that athlete is really weak with single leg balance. Okay, so we're gonna hammer home like a lot more stability stuff. But maybe this athlete, or maybe another athlete is really good balance wise, really quick, but they are just not strong. So we're gonna tweak it so that there's gonna be a little bit more muscle building, a little bit more strength focus, in order to kind of find that weakness. So that's really how it works. But honestly, like I think in the summer, I'll probably get around 50-ish plus goalies players that will come and just do the programs. They're usually like 25 weeks. So like they're 6 months long, 6 months, five, four, yeah, like it's 5 or 6 months long. Like it's everything you need. And then I'll get text messages come August and be like, hey, I had killed my fitness testing. I was one of the best on the team. And I was like, that's what I love to hear because you did the work. Like I just created a program. You did the work. Perfect. Is there anything that you liked and didn't like? Sometimes it's like, hey, I'd like there to be more conditioning, or I'd like there to be this, this, this. And then when I do actually an athlete 3 and actually an athlete 4, I modify it based on the feedback I had from previous athletes. So it's always like a work in progress.
We'll link up the elitegoaliemethod.com and elite goalie method labs down in the show notes here. Again, another kind of multi-part question here. It's 2 parts this time, I promise. First one is when you're dealing with goalies specifically, and a goalie gets injured, what would be your advice to help them to get back on the ice as quick as possible? And where's my other question here? With your physical fit therapy background, what would be some advice for goalies, or what they would need to do in order to prevent injuries?
Yes. In order to get back as quickly as possible, the honest answer is if you can go see a physio and have them get their hands on you and go through a full eval, that's the best case because they are experts. And even if they're not pure hockey people, they're still experts in the body and they'll be able to tell you what's wrong, give you some guidance. Easily they'd easily be the best thing. Or if your team has an athletic trainer, like I do remote like rehab stuff. Um, it's just honestly, it's significantly easier when the person is laying on my table and I can get my hands on them and do testing and like, be able to do dry needling and stuff with them. Um, in order to the resiliency and prevent injuries. Uh, I mean, I'm going to try not to ramble because as you and the listeners have noticed, I do like to talk. Basically the elevator pitch that I would say it is be as strong as you can through full ranges of motions as best as possible and be strong at your end ranges. Like that's really it. So being strong through full range of motion. So like if you're at the gym and you're doing a front squat, like I don't care as much like that you can put 275 on the bar and squat to 90 as much as I can care that maybe you go 185 and you can squat full like ATG all the way down like butt to grass and come up. Like I would much rather that, and then we maintain that range of motion because that's what's going to matter overall. Because when we get injured, it's because we've put our body in a position that it can't handle those forces, or it's we've gradually chipped away at whatever musculoskeletal or nervous issues over the course of a season, and eventually it just comes to the point where we put that last chisel in, something breaks. So if we can train the body through as many like full ranges of motions to be as strong as possible, usually that also helps you become as flexible as possible, and that's going to help for giving you the most likelihood to prevent an injury.
So there you go, goalies. Get in the gym, full range of motion, and for all the goalies that were giving me grief in dryland, don't have that opportunity anymore. Moving moving on here. We talked a little bit about it earlier when it came to creating content on the internet, and like you were saying, like there's a lot of BS out there on the internet, both just in general life and specifically when it came to hockey. So, what led you specifically to start to creating content for goalies? We could talk about your YouTube channel, your Instagram, and as well as your podcast with Goalie Science with you and Derek Bujan.
What led it? Yeah, like I said at the start, it was just because there was a lot of nonsense, and I was like, all right, well, a lot of this is wrong, so I'm just gonna talk about it. And people really liked it, and then I guess because maybe it was kind of as a fresher breath air. Um, when I was doing it, I was like, this shouldn't be a fresher breath air, but I get it. And then that just kind of grew from there, and I do think the amount of nonsense has kind of slowed down a bit, which is good. It still exists, but it exists in a different form. Where basically it exists now, where we try to think we're smarter than we are. Like you'll do a drill where you're I don't know, you're jumping over sticks and juggling a ball or something, and you'll say like, this is retraining this proprioceptive, kinematic, neuroplastic, blah, 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 instead of saying like, this is just a fun drill to warm up.
Mhm.
That's okay. Like everything doesn't have to be hyper specific. Like it's okay just to warm up and do weird stuff because it's fun. But don't do weird stuff in the guise of somehow saying it's getting you better, because it's not. And like if we're actually trying to get better, you're going to do game specific things. You're going to be doing 3-on-2s, 2-on-1s, options, screens, traffic, tips, battles. Like that's it. All the other stuff is just kind of fun and accessory. Like, and that's okay. Like that's great. I want to have fun. I play a game after every session that I have. Like I don't end a session without a game because I want it to be fun. And then they can also put everything that they do together.
Yeah.
And then just with the content, I just kind of, just growing it and being able to help others put some of my thoughts down and kind of like how I see the game, how I read the game. Now it's like trickling in a little bit more that the rehab side of things, talking about recovery and training and just kind of overall encompassing that stuff. And then the good part about the podcast is it started off with Dr. Ben Cernick and myself, and it was really science heavy. Ben unfortunately had to leave because he's finishing his PhD. He's getting a lot of looks from NHL teams on the stats side. He does research heavy, so he had to leave. He just didn't have the time for it. And now with Bouge, the pod is a little less sciencey, but it's more of like the science of coaching rather than some of the nitty gritty science. And it's really resonates a lot with parents who are kind of like trying to figure out how to navigate through the hockey process, and then like help. And then with like goalies too, is like understanding that the episode that releases tomorrow morning is about like how to talk to coaches and like what are, like not even like what do coaches want to say, but like when a team calls you and they're interested, you know, instead of saying like whatever kids say, like skibbity riz or dumb stuff, like, yeah, and it's funny, but kids say dumb stuff
No,
when I talk to
absolutely.
them.
Yes. Yeah.
But how do you present yourself in a good professional way that is going to give you the best opportunity to grow yourself and grow your career? And so that's the beauty of goalie science, where it allows for that platform. And so that the YouTube channel, again, is just it's accessory arm of the Instagram, where I can just make longer form content. And then I actually have a pretty good newsletter. I changed the name. It was EGM Weekly, and now it's Phillips Performance Playbook, just because there's a lot of physio stuff in there too. But like a lot of people sign up, and I look at like the clicks and opens, and it does pretty well. And so every week, um, I'll type out or I'll record like a video talking of some sort of concept, and sometimes it's goalie specific, sometimes it's athlete specific, sometimes it's just general stuff. And then I just use the text, the captions of it, to distill it into like a newsletter format, so they get both the video if people don't want to read, or if people don't want to listen to me talk, they can read the kind of the TLDR of it, and that gets sent out every week. So there's basically, I'm trying to be everywhere as best as I can be as a one-man band. I try to be everywhere as I can, just to provide as much possible value to the athletes and their families as possible.
That's one of the great things about social media in the same breath, is just being able to utilize different platforms in order to bring you back to whatever your main platform is. Let's say it's the podcast with Goalie Science, right? It, Derek has his own thing on Instagram. You have your own thing on Instagram, plus TikTok, and all the social media channels that kids have, and being able to relay that and bringing that back to the main platform, which, let's say for example, is the YouTube channel with the podcast, or even just the podcast platform in general. It does a lot of wonders, and it's very, for me, that's the cool stuff to see, kind of just where all the traffic comes from there. So what would be, and I don't want to hesitate to ask this question, but I feel like I should. What would be your advice for goalies who may want to get into starting goalie content?
Oh, this is a good question. I don't think anyone's ever asked that to me before. What would be my advice to someone? Oh man, So you got to give me more specifics. Are we talking they want to get into the goalie coaches or like currently playing goalies?
Well, let's like for okay, so like TikTok obviously being probably the number one platform in the world right now until Donald Trump gets his grubby little hands on it and shuts it off.
In 10 days, yeah.
Yeah. Um, so let's say because like there is, like you got guys like Nick the goalie, and then you got all these
Mm,
other goalie content creators out there, and so for back when you and I were younger, YouTube was probably the biggest thing at the time where people were able to
mhm,
express themselves and post videos of whatever it is that they wanted to post videos of until people actually turned it into some kind of medium. So I guess just like hey, like I'm 15-year-old Connor Monday. I want to get into starting to creating goalie content. What what would be your advice for me for doing that? Should I focus on like a specific niche, like for you, you got the physiotherapy aspect of it for us over at True North Goaltending, and we're able to dive into more of the, I don't want to say technical aspects because Nathan and I go off the rails with that sometimes, but the more technical aspects with things, and kind of what for us as coaches look for amongst other things. In Goal Magazine has what In Goal
mhm.
Magazine has, right? So I guess that's in a nutshell kind of what I'm asking.
Oh god, it's a tough question. So 15-year-old Connor, the advice I would give to 15-year-old Connor would be different than the advice to 22-year-old Connor who just aged out of playing junior and wants to become a goalie coach.
Sure.
15-year-old Connor, I would say if you really want to push for the hockey career, make content, but be aware it's going to put you it's going to put you on a slightly different microscope than competition, and make sure that someone is there to check up to make sure that your content isn't hurting your career. And I say that has it has in a way because I see a lot of these like parent run goalie accounts,
Right.
and it's not that it's bad, but it's just like it's just these crazy highlight reels and all these different things, and maybe I'm just getting old, and it's just kind of like, but remember, like the people in charge of making a lot of decisions are older than I am, and they don't get it. So I would just say be cautious. But this is where that's where the advice would be different for the older goal, for Connor that's about to be the goalie coach, where the advice would be similar. I would say first of all is be yourself. You had mentioned like Nick the goalie. Like I've never met Nick the goalie, but he's just kind of himself. Like Trav 4, we're buddies. Like hate him, love him or hate him, he's just kind of himself.
Right.
Mountain High goaltending like Zabs is himself. Like he just makes his content him trying out weird gear and using blue skates and talking about toe ties, and people love it. Increased performance, like he's kind of the class, the thickest Canadian accent, classic, chirping the kids, working with a lot of young kids, making sure they laugh, smile, having a good time. Like that's his content, that's his niche. It seems like the kind of guy he is,
Yeah.
and he's not trying to be different. Than I am like the science nerd guy. Like that's okay. Like I don't make skits. Like people have said like, hey, why don't you make some skits? Like I don't really make skits just because it's just not me. Like I don't have any desire to do it, and I don't think I'd be funny to do it. I'd rather talk about science stuff or like make more serious content.
Hmm.
And so I think that's kind of the thing. Is so like just kind of like be yourself, and just if you're a goalie coach, just post your coaching. Like post the way you coach. Like now I've got to a point where like I've been able to either allocate a bit of my budget to having someone come out occasionally to film content, or as I'm fortunate enough that I have a couple of goalies whose parents do media things, and so we're able to trade lessons for content, and so they'll come out, and like I posted a video on Monday that's just a clip of me teaching kids,
Hmm.
and so it's great because I can just show the way that I teach, and maybe one, it's going to help some people. Two, it's also maybe someone's watching it and be like, "Bang! I really like the way that you articulate that," and can communicate that. Like, I want to come skate with you, and that's perfect. And if my thing was, hey, I like to chirp kids because skating with me is more of a fun experience, like, then lay into that. Like Nick the goalie, I don't really watch his content, but the ones I have, it's a GoPro behind the net, and it's just him enjoying being a goalie,
Yeah.
and that's why people love it. And so don't you just be yourself, and don't overthink it too much.
I think like I would agree with you on the niche part specifically for the older goalies. I mean, again, we see like the parent run accounts like that you were talking about, and I don't personally think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's a cautionary thing because you get some parents that are, I don't want to say helicopter parents, but those are the ones that think that their kid's going pro or whatever, right? So they're basically using Instagram or TikTok or whatever as a profile for non-existent scouts at that point in time. But I think where hockey, and again we could talk about the NHL in general, where there's not a lot of personality, and also you get like the original hockey YouTubers like Nasher being one, and Trav Four, as well as again Nick the goalie. So you start to see a little more personality coming with it as well. And again, the idea of sharing ideas such as what you post and all the other goalie company content creators and accounts that are out there, and sharing what they have, and then again what we do at the DIY goalie, and on top of In Goal magazine. So I would say it's just like, what would be something that like watch your favorite content creators, whether it's Jamie Phillips or Nick the goalie or Daniel Wapple with increased performance. And I'm not saying necessarily to emulate what they're doing, and kind of, I would say, do what they're doing, but obviously put your own spin on it. And just what are you doing to help contribute to the goalie community as a whole?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. Is you kind of basically we're all gonna have the same niche. It's
Exactly.
goalies. Where there's gonna be a little bit of different things in the way we approach it, but yeah, like especially in the coaching side, be yourself. If you're a player side, I would say also be yourself. The goalie the current, so I gotta say the current minor hockey player accounts that I see, that I look at and I go, okay, like this is kind of the like a decent way to structure it, are the ones that are just kind of like, they just kind of like make goalie memes, and it's just more about enjoying being a goalie. It's not so serious. They're not kind of using it as like a resume builder.
Right.
To be honest, like no, you're not having like a resume or like a showcased social media account almost definitely isn't going to help you. It's probably only going to hurt you, in the sense that, like, say you post something kind of dumb and
Hmm.
someone sees it and it goes against you. Like, no one's really gonna post, like, you to post a sick glove save, and I've never once saw a sick glove save and be like, yeah, I gotta sign this kid right now. Like, that's just not how recruiting works. Like, there's so many channels and avenues and how we do things that, like, doesn't like things. But if I'm interested in a kid, I will go through their social media and I will see, are they posting dumb things?
Right.
And it kind of tells me, oh no, this player might be a issue off the ice, or we might have to, their focus maybe isn't there, and all these kind of things. And so, yeah, that's where my hesitation would be for players. Like, um, just post it, like, enjoy it. Like, you put your gear on, you're in the living room, and you make a funny meme, or you get some new sticks, and you're like, hey, this is my new Bauer Hyperlay. Like, this is really cool. This is why I like it, and blah blah blah. And that's the kind of content that I think is good for active players.
Social media is a
But you
beautiful
can look at,
thing
like,
sometimes.
yeah, I was gonna say, you can even look at, like, someone who has done a good job is like, is Katsuzuo. Now, obviously, he's
Yep.
almost become more of a social media person than he has a goalie. However, it puts him under a significant microscope to teams. And, like right now, I know he's playing in that new East Coast team there, and Bison
Oh
something, and I'm forgetting
yeah,
the
I know which
name.
one. I know exactly which one you're talking about. I can't think of it off the top
Yeah,
of my head.
and so
But yeah,
he's found a home, which is good. Um, but again, like he definitely knows it, and it's no surprise. But for people listening that might not know, is there will be internal conversations with organizations saying like, hey, if we sign this player, like this is opening ourselves up, and we don't want there to be bad publicity by accident, like just literally just by accident.
yeah,
Like it's not like he's going to come in guns a blazing and if he gets cut or traded, say something bad. But if he unintentionally posts something and it gets like portrayed as bad, then it only hurts. And so that's kind of like that's where things can suck quite a bit too. When you're still an active player, is you're under a bit more of a microscope.
don't do anything stupid on the internet, people. I guess that's
That is true because it lives
the
there forever.
yeah, exactly. Um, okay, so transitioning out of social media now, going back into specifically goalie coaching here for a second. Um, what changed in your approach from being a goalie coach for the program with Michigan Tech to being the goalie director for Fox Fox Motors minor hockey? That's a mouthful.
I Yeah, I went from not dealing with parents to dealing with parents, and not in a bad way. Like, well, sometimes you get crazy hockey parents. Fortunately, there's only two sets of parents on a team, and there isn't 20 like the head coaches have to deal with. So it's a lot of it's a lot of managing like parents, and it's more career advice, navigation, on that side of it, and then more on the coaching side, it's a lot more fundamentals. Um, and it's okay. Like when you coach at higher levels, you have already good goalies. And I think that's actually that this is like, and you know this like this, but for people that haven't played at a high level or haven't coached with others at a high level, like coaching at the NHL is probably the easiest job of all time. You just have the best goalies in the world. So you're not really coaching. You're more of just managing them, and you're just making sure that they feel good and they feel confident and they're all on the same page. Um, like even if the job gets harder if you're the development coach because you're gonna have younger athletes, but you're still getting like the next best group of goalies. When you're working with kids, you're gonna have good goalies, you're gonna have bad goalies, you have all these goalies, and that is where the most amount of work is, but it's also where I find the most amount of effort. Would it be cool if I won the Stanley Cup as the goalie coach for the Florida Panthers? Yeah, that would be pretty darn cool. Am I going to tell Sergei Bobrovsky what to do? Almost definitely not. You know, if there's anything, if he's going to change his game, it's he's probably going to be like, hey, what do you think of this kind of thing? Whereas I'll get a younger goalie who's going to be like, hey, I'm going to play like Bobrovsky. And it's going to be like, all right, look, here's what here's why I'd like you to do this like Bobrovsky. And here's, what you shouldn't do like Bobrovsky kind of thing. It's like, you are the stiffest person on the planet. Like your stance isn't going to be wide because you can't move. So we're going to narrow you up. And so that's where the major differences are with, higher level goalies, and then mixed with, and then moving into, with younger goalies.
That's the biggest thing that I found as well, coaching from, you know, smaller, younger kids to coaching in juniors, where that was the that was probably the hardest transition for me, was is that you're not necessarily teaching these older kids anything new because they already have the basic foundations for their game, and it's more like you said, just kind of managing and just kind of building on the fundamentals that they have, maybe tweaking one or two things here or there, but you're not you're not reinventing the wheel with them in that aspect.
Mhm. Like if someone came and watched, well, I was in Muskegon today. Someone watched any of my junior A skates. I don't say a whole lot because I don't need to. It's just like being so hyper visual on everything, is I need to find like the smallest little detail because they've already checked all the other boxes, and it just becomes a more collaborative experience where they'll come in and be like, I was, I turned my shoulder there. I'm like, you actually didn't, but let's watch it back. Let's see what you did. Or I'll be like, what do you think on this situation? How would you play it? Okay, I would play it like this. What do you think? Like, yeah, that's not really in my game. All right, let's play it your way. Let's try it again. Where it's kids, you're like, you you can kind of tell. You gotta. I usually try not to tell goalies what to do. I want them to kind of like I try to like inception into their minds, or use like motivational interviewing where they have to come up with the answer themselves. That's the
Okay.
best way for them to learn. But it's more of you are teaching constantly until they get to that point where they no longer need that constant feedback, and then it just becomes, yeah, like a junior A session. It's just I stand there and I go, good, couple reminders, good, we talk about it a little bit, that.
Yeah.
Where when with the kids it's nonstop, nonstop, nonstop.
Less is more, basically being
Yeah, oh
the
yeah.
the thing there. All right, come more here to wrap you up. I think we're probably taking a little bit longer of your time, more than we need to. Call it the Kevin Woodley special at this point. Um, so, being a Canadian-born goaltender who is now involved mostly with
Mhm.
the U.S. hockey and living in the States, are there any differences or similarities when it comes to goalie development?
I was never highly involved in Hockey Canada in the development side, or as a player. So I can't speak to what Hockey Canada is doing in general. The 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 base structure of development, like, because I have a lot of colleagues in European countries. I went to Finland to coach. Um, I like to study those systems. They're Canada and USA are pretty much the same in terms of you have it relies almost 100% on private goalie coaching, whether that's going to your private goalie coach or an organization hiring a goalie coach. There's very little collaborative effort. Now, USA Hockey does do a lot of, like, they have district camps, all these different evaluation things. It doesn't just start at like U16, where I know it did in Ontario, at least when I was younger. Um, and so USA Hockey is trying to do these things. They don't do like a lot of hard and fast mandates. Like, they don't say like, hey, all USA Hockey goalie coaches have to coach like this, have to coach like that, which is different than like Sweden and Finland. They don't really say you have to coach, but they all get together and they kind of come up with a collective idea of these are the best guidelines to coach our goalies. So that's where they're very similar in that sense. Um, yeah, and then actually now it's the lines are going to get even more blurred with the new like major junior being allowed to play college hockey route. Um, Now it's just, which I think was really good, but now you're just going to have more players, more goalies playing major junior that just go to college, and so we're just going to get extra years of development. So I think in about 10 years we're going to have a lot of really good goalies because of that, but the foundational structure itself is exactly the same.
Okay, so then let me ask it this way then. So, with Derek Bujan being based out of Ontario, if I understand that correctly,
Mhm.
um, I suppose then, like, do you guys compare notes when it comes to kind of development in terms of what he's doing in Canada? And I'm not saying like following like whatever Hockey Canada's regulations are, because I know that sometimes we don't out here. Um, but like, I guess like is a development plan like if Derek Bujan was to be given a development plan from Hockey Canada when it comes to goaltending, and you were given a development plan for USA goalies, would there do you think there would be any differences or mostly similarities? I feel like it's the latter, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, yeah, it's going to be mostly similarities for a couple of reasons. One, the development plan. I've seen both Hockey Canada and USA Hockey's like long-term development models and how they want to plan them. And then I have my own development model that I use in this organization, and then I also have one that's for goalies that are outside our organization that could still help. And they're very similar with just a few subtle nuances. Um, Same with Derek. Same with Derek. We're gonna vary a little bit, but for the most part, like, him and I are basically on the same wavelength for everything. Like, I owe all my goalie coaching knowledge to him, and then I've just built upon everything he's taught me, and then he's continued to grow. So they're going to be very similar. Yeah, and like, I'll just give you the playbook is, you know, be around as many smart coaches as you can be as consistently as possible, and put in as much work as you can, as safely as you can under under expert supervision. Like, meaning when I say expert supervision, like good goalie coaching, good training, so you're not overdoing it. Because usually when you say put in hard work, kids overdo it. Um, and then have good genetics and get lucky. It's really it. Like, it's, like that's really, yeah. I wish, and when I say the good genetic parts, like, some people get discouraged because they're small, and I get it. Like, so it sucks. I'm not small. I'm 6'4". I mean, I had a good genetics, um, but it doesn't mean that you can't still play at a super high level hockey. You can still play college hockey. You can still play minor pro. Is the NHL probably out of reach unless you are Dustin Wolf or UC Saros level?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Like, straight up, like, I'll just say it is. And like, I talk with NHL people all the time. It is. Like, it really is, unless you're the best of the best and like you have just torn up. But the NHL, like, we don't always have to have the NHL as the goal, right? Like, the goal should be to play hockey as long as you can, as much fun as you can.
Right.
But I think a good goal, like, I think a good goal, a realistic goal now, is play high level college hockey, because there are a lot of small goalies in college hockey that are doing really well. So, kind of, that's where I'd put it. So yeah, just really those things. Just have good people, work hard, enjoy it, get lucky, have some good genetics, and that's the playbook. And if you repeat that over thousands of goalies, some of them are going to be successful. And it's really it. There's no like secret sauce to it at all. I mean, some places might have better quality goalie coaches than others. Some are going to have more numbers than others in terms of number of goalies, and the more the larger the number of goalies, the higher the odds are you're going to have more home runs. And so it's kind of where it is, and that's why we see. It's one of the reasons why we see a lot of the European countries are catching up or have exceeded USA and in Canada, is just because one of the reasons is just because more kids are playing hockey there. They're just getting more numbers. Like, yeah, like Finland's a small country, but if they were always producing goalies, and if there are more kids enrolled, they're still going to produce goalies.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's kind of where that's the secret sauce that it is for everyone.
Seems to be a general consensus everywhere. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, well, Jamie, this has been a blast. We are very, very thankful to have you out here today. Just one more thing to wrap it up here. I suppose in one word, maybe one word, maybe two
I'm not
words.
good at not. You can tell after this. I did 80% of the talking that I'm not good at one words.
Well, let's give it a shot here. In one word,
I'll try my best.
what would be okay, well, maybe I shouldn't handicap you like this. So what, I guess I suppose instead, what would be your one piece of advice? What would be the number one thing that Jamie Phillips would um, give to all the goalies in North America or across the world?
Of course, I can't give it to you in one answer. So I'm gonna steer clear of the cliche, the true cliche of make sure you enjoy every day, because it is true. Like, you should enjoy it, and that's a good piece of advice. That's what everyone's gonna say. So I'm gonna go something different and say, if it is truly if hockey is truly what you want, don't be afraid to go all in with it, because you're going to learn something and you're going to have some of the best experiences of your life. So just go all in if you truly want to be a hockey player.
I should have said three words. Go all in. That's the
Hey, you know
that's
what? Go all in is that's pretty good.
there you go. You're welcome. Jamie, where can people find you on the great internet?
There's a lot of different places live, a lot of different things. Honestly, the easiest would be to follow me on Instagram. It's at Jamie Phillips 30. If you just Google Jamie Phillips goalie coach, you'll find a ton of stuff. You'll find everything. And then if you're someone looking for training or rehab, it's ghostrehab.com is the website, and you can find all my stuff there.
Perfect. Well, Jamie, again, thank you very much for coming on the program today. Much appreciated. Goalies, thank you for watching if you are watching on the YouTube side of things, and thank you for listening if you are on any of your favorite podcasting platforms, Apple, iHeart, Spotify, etc. If you are a new viewer or a new listener to our wonderful program, make sure you hit that subscribe button or hit that follow button. Only takes a couple of minutes. The more goalies that we can get brought together, the better. You can follow True North Goaltending, which is our in-house goalie coaching company here in the greater Edmonton area, at True North Goaltending on all your favorite social media platforms, except for Instagram, because we like to be different. You can follow us there at YEG Goalie Coach. Again, we talked about a couple podcasts ago. We are migrating all of the DIY goalie stuff over to True North Goaltending. So just go follow us over there, because all of our DIY programs will be over there. You can follow myself only on Instagram at MondayGC. Thank you very much for watching, goalies, and for listening. Make some saves. We'll see you next time. Take care.